I'm Wendy Dietzler, Director of Events and Education for Trade Press Media Group. Thank you all for joining us for today's event, Modernizing Building and Facility Management. Our presenter today is John Wright, Industrial Solutions Leader for Retail and Fitness for Salto Systems. John leads Salto Systems' retail solutions business practice with a focus on aligning their innovative access control technology and hardware with the evolving needs of the North American retail industry. John is a retail facilities expert who is passionate about creating more effective and efficient access control solutions. And together with Salto, he is on a mission to bring new technologies and products to market that keep people and property safe while enhancing the retail experience. So we've got some webcast learning objectives today, and those are as follows. We want to discuss trends shaping the access and security landscape. We want to explore how new technologies can address these changing needs that a lot of our building managers and facility managers face. Learn how assembling that right platform and system can optimize a building, reduce costs, attract and retain tenants, deliver a lot of benefits. And finally, we're going to explore that ecosystem, which is a network of companies and experts that are collaborating to create a platform for innovations to empower access for generations to come. And before John gets underway, I'm going to spend 2 more minutes with you to just go over some of our webcast best practices. We do encourage audience questions, and you can submit yours at any time by navigating to that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Just move your mouse over there. It should pop right up. We are going to pause at several points during John's presentation today to take those questions, so don't hesitate. Send yours in as they occur to you. After today's webcast concludes, you're going to receive a PDF copy of John's slides. You're also going to receive a link to a brief online assessment, 4 questions, true and false. And when you successfully complete that assessment, you will receive a CEU certificate as well. And finally, we are going to archive this presentation later on today or tomorrow at facilitiesnet.com/webcasts. Okay, I'm all done. It's time for John. Welcome to the presentation, John. It's all you.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. As noted, I'm John Wright. I am a business leader for the Salto ecosystem in North America, and I help develop our products in the retail, sports, fitness, and leisure industries. So I have the pleasure of helping develop solutions for our end-to-end clients, our end-user clients, developing ongoing relationship with technical partners and supporting internal and external channel teams. The Salto ecosystem is an integrated access and identity management approach that leverages innovative technologies and solutions. So including our world-class wireless hardware, which is how most people know us with Salto. Although you're not going to hear me talk a ton about hardware today, so don't worry, you won't be bored with that. So we focus on enhancing user experience and really improving daily lives through smarter access solutions. And the ecosystem includes 3 different companies, Salto, Gantner, and Ventia, each contributing a different aspect of access control and management. The core principles of the ecosystem are proximity to people, passion for innovation, connection, agility, and integrity. The ecosystem aims to create a sustainable, interconnected, and innovative access solution for the future. I'm extremely excited to have an opportunity to present today, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us. So I know Wendy covered some learning objectives, but my specific objectives are really to cover specifically objectives of modernizing building and facility management and focusing on the users and their expanding expectations within our venues. The industries we serve and how user management varies in tomorrow's solutions, and really exploring market trends and their impact on management entities today. After that, we'll kind of go through a quick review, and then, of course, we're going to open it up for questions and discussion. And feel free to ask as we go along as well. So before developing any modern solution, it's crucial to understand the ecosystem of the people involved. Who are we servicing and what roles are we managing? You know, our facilities are occupied by a lot of different users, and they have a lot of different roles. So when you look at today's ecosystems, you know, we really have 2 different sets of types of users. We have what I call internal users. We all have these. These are going to be our admin, security, and staff individuals, right? And And they're not limited to what you see on the screen, but on the screen are some general ones that a lot of us deal with. And these are executives and facility managers and IT groups and guard services, possibly. In retail, we have LP, AP elements. And then, of course, we have staff, both management and standardized employees. Some of our venues also bring in a lot of other types of users, right? Some of these users need some sort of access or permission, some do not. But we do have to take into effect who they are and what role are they playing on our facilities moving forward. These are going to be in your hospitality type scenario, the patrons, the guests, the people paying to stay on site. In retail, this could be a consumer. In healthcare, this could be a patient or a visitor. And in a lot of ways, you've got a lot of different temporary individuals coming on and off the different campuses that we manage. So these could be contractors and outside vendors, or volunteers in healthcare scenario. But many systems currently are developed or designed around specifications or even security protocols, right? That's how we're developing our systems. Both are undoubtedly important factors, but we must also look at the people at which we service. That's really what modern day access is about. The people, their needs, and really their expectations should dictate what solution we start to move forward to, not just the required security specifications that it needs to meet. So yes, we need to meet those, but that's not what should develop the system to begin with, right? So by acknowledging the human element, we can really tailor our solutions to enhance security and improve the overall experience for everyone involved. Both us as a management entity and also the user themselves, right? It's a holistic approach that really forms a foundation of modern facilities and facilities management. And I kind of want us to think a little bit out of the box here today, right? And I'm going to set this up. I'll kind of paint a picture of a solution to get us thinking that way. 92% of households in the US own a vehicle, right? So it's a tool and a solution that we are extremely familiar with. Most of us probably spend too much time in a vehicle every day. I know I did for a long time. And we could use a ton of different user-based advancements within the automobile. But because I'm an access control nerd, of course, I'm going to use the key. So when we look at an automobile key, it has progressed rapidly and taught us a ton about user expectation. Right? The shift from a traditional mechanical key to a modern smart key is a testament to the automobiles industry and really their agility in meeting the ever-evolving needs and expectations of their users. So initially, car keys were simple mechanical devices designed solely to unlock and start a vehicle. However, as technology kind of advanced and user expectations grew, we started going into items like a transponder key, right? Now, this key just kind of evolved, incorporated a more user-friendly solution, but also created a better security set, right? From a transponder key, we moved into laser cut keys. Obviously harder to copy, still kind of a security-based improvement. They looked better, they felt better in your hand, that type of scenario. They didn't bend. These were all increases. But very quickly, keys started to adapt to the user, right? Providing them with not only higher security, but also a better experience, right? Remote keys were an early glimpse into this process. The ability to lock and unlock the car from some distance was nice to not have to put the key into the door. And we really quickly started kind of seeing the same thing with a switchblade key. Now the key is not poking a hole in my pocket, right? Falling out of my pocket, that type of scenario. I could close it and flip it and it looked cool. Maybe you had to be able to pop the trunk or start the car. But I remember the first time we moved into like a fobic, there was no actual key. This was just purely kind of an RFID or plug-based device, applying a sleeker design and functionality from outside the car. But very quickly after that, we started moving into a much better user experience, right? Now we started talking about keyless entry. This is a massive step in user experience and something we completely expect in a new car today, right? In fact, we expect a lot more than that. This was the ability to interact with your car hands-free. Key was in your purse, in your pocket, didn't matter. No longer needed to insert it into a key or into an ignition. I just walked up, got in, drove off, right? I knew the key was on me somewhere, who knows where. From there, we started moving into even faster, quickly kind of gained into like an interactive tool, like an LCD GPS-based model, right? Giving us more and more control over the vehicle and applying a better solution fitted to us, the user. Current day, right? Current day, we have keys. That's not just an access tool, but a smart device connected to our entire technological world, right? These days, we can do things with our keys that the Jetsons would be jealous of. We can see the vehicle's precise location. We can control the internal temperature. We can watch a video of the surrounding area of the vehicle. We can communicate with individuals surrounding the vehicle. We can even park the vehicle from outside the vehicle with the key, right? This day, we can even summon our car to us. If you would have told me when I was 17 years old, 16 years old, that I was going to be summoning a vehicle to me, I would have told you you're crazy. But that's our current day user expectation, right? User expectations drive innovation and create the function in everything we do. So when we buy a vehicle, it's not, it's not just about a specific need to get from one place to another, right? We have a lot of different needs that we are very specific about when we're looking for that. Is it a car, truck, or SUV, right? Does it sit 1 to 9 people? Is it gas or electric? We tend to have about 10 different deciding factors when we contemplate buying a vehicle. So we probably have more if the price wasn't one of them, but it is. So it kind of dictates what we're asking for. But each of us drives a different vehicle. It might be the same manufacturer or even the same model, but it is not a true replica from one to another. Yet a lot of what we do in the security world today is apply the same make and model to every user. Today and tomorrow, users have a growing expectation of the solutions that we apply, and we need to start to adapt to those expectations. You look at modern day access control, and you could probably look at this screen here and say, my current credential that I use probably matches one of these keys, right? You may use a mechanical key still. Great, fine. You got a lot of growth ahead of you. Your user expectation is going to grow immensely when you do it. Some of you may use a full-on, digital key built into anywhere from an Apple Wallet to, some type of digital credential, or somewhere in between with a fob, card, or RFID bracelet. Any and all of those adapt to one of these keys here. If we take a step back and really look at the user base we service in our facilities, we can very easily start to create solutions to meet them rather than the building itself, right? So a lot of times we look at an actual floor plan in the building and say, this is where we want to control access. Very rarely do we flip it around and say, these are the people that we want to create access for. And this is how we want to do it with the solution in a building. So a basic way of doing this is to kind of look at the industry you service and the relative users that function like within your ecosystem. So, do you have patrons? Do you have security? Do you have guests? All these different items. And then how am I servicing the control and security to each one of those individuals? Right?
Hey, John, thanks for that. I'm going to just take a pause. I'm only about halfway through the evolution chain with my current car key, but the one thing that I really heard you talking about, it was really that user piece of it. Just a reminder to anybody, if you've got questions at this point, type them in. Otherwise, I'm just going to ask one and then we can go onto the next phase of your presentation. But when you talked about those, identifying those user needs, where do you typically start in terms of kind of auditing your user base? Whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in retail, who starts that conversation and who starts gathering that data?
Yeah, well, facilities managers.
Okay.
Know everything that goes on everywhere. In fact, I say facilities managers they kind of touch everything. They're my favorite people to talk to most of the time because they know their venues better than anybody else, like down to every single door, every single key.
Right.
They know it well, which one is the sticky one, which one is the one that needs to be repaired, all that fun stuff. But really what you want to do is start to look at your users based on volume.
Okay.
So, most of the time you start with your staff, and a lot of us do this already. Our staff needs access. who are our staff and why and where do they need access. But then start to step down very granularly and say, okay, who are outside vendors? If we have visitors, who are they? How are they gaining access? How are those specific use cases working? And how do you improve that specific user as opposed to just generalizing it as a one user, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's super important. And it really changes by industry,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll kind of go into that here shortly.
Okay, great.
A perfect example. And do we have any other questions that popped up?
No, so feel free
Okay.
to take it from there, John, and go into those use cases.
Yeah, so I'll start with a very, very easy one, and this is one I know very well, which is probably easy for me, right? So we start with retail. Retail environments can vary significantly in scale. So I'm not going to say it's just a single. Yeah, we've got retail people that have 10,000 venues, right? 10,000 stores. So it can be anywhere from one store to 10,000 stores. So we're not necessarily going to talk about scale, but standard stores typically have retail stores, a relatively lower user base. Right? The people that we're actually functioning and helping gain access, we primarily have three, really, in most cases. We've got management, staff, and temp users, right? So management really requires seamless control and oversight over the retail operation. Right? They need access to all stores and areas, including high security zones, such as cash handling or even inventory storage. And really, they use the platform to set access permissions for others, monitor entry and exit logs, and then respond to any type of security alerts in real time. So cloud-based systems are really heavily used in retail, right? Because that allows them to scale over large areas. But their use case is full access, real-time monitoring, and reporting, and really remote staff access management. Those are really the main things that management's looking for. When we step over and look at our employee users, it's a lot about role-based access permissions. Are they an associate? Assistant manager, store manager, right? All the way up as we roll into management, you've got DMs and RVPs and APLP groups. They may overlook specific areas, but it's very role based. And our solution needs to be very flexible in role as opposed to very granular in access at a singular location, right? So obviously integration with things like time and attendance systems is a big plus for an employee, as it takes two different things they have to achieve into one single action. And remote access adjustments is important if you've got to cover one store to another. We see that quite a bit as well. The third one will be like contractors and outside vendors. These people might be hired for maintenance or repairs or cleaning or installations, whatever it may be, but they require access to specific areas for limited periods of time. So access control platforms, most of the time with them, really enables the management or to set precise access in windows of time. So time-based access permissions, area-specific permissions, and then activity monitoring of them and their work being done. If we take a much larger solution, right? So if we kind of move into a more robust application like a healthcare facility, we encounter many, many more user types and have a lot of different expectations when it comes to the user types. So, you start here and you've got executives and admins, right? They need comprehensive access to the entire healthcare facility, right? This is going to be everywhere from patient care to data rooms. Really, they're the ones who are using and setting the platform policies, and they may even be reviewing logs or ensuring compliance with regulators. The system provides real-time insights, and in most cases, in this scenario, is more of an on-prem based system. But you look at their needs, and their needs are full access permissions, policy setting and compliance monitoring, and real-time insights and remote management. When you step into the staff, there's a lot more of the staff, and it's a lot more of a revolving door just because it's a larger venue. So staff are responsible for maintenance and operation of the healthcare facility completely, right? This is the required access of mechanical rooms, electrical panels, infrastructure areas. In some cases, they're the ones operating the access control platform. But they are also somewhat restricted to specific areas like patient care areas, right? So you've got an individual who may be an engineer who's not going to be going into a patient care area. So you still have controlled access for different types of individuals. And a kind of a good example of that would be like an IT staff. An IT staff doesn't necessarily need to access a patient room, but they definitely need access to data rooms, server rooms, and other critical IT infrastructure. So security guards, perfect example here in that scenario. They need access to all areas. You never know where you're going to have a security issue, but they have healthcare facilities. They perform patrols and respond to incidents and ensure everybody's safety. So they really use the platform to monitor entry and exit points. And in some scenarios, they even operate and run the visitor management solution of a healthcare facility. The biggest set of users is the healthcare employees themselves. So this is going to be our doctors and nurses and administrative staff who need access to specific areas to their relevant roles. And they are also dealing with, some other regulatory issues like pharmaceutical control. So pharmacies and nurses and the handling of pharmaceutical controls, that's a basic function and role that needs to be taken into consideration, especially as we build more and more into regulatory practices with pharmacy and pharmaceutical control. So patients obviously are coming and going as well. They require a safe and secure environment. They may or may not be given access, but they are definitely restricted access. So we really need to be able to monitor and ensure their safety. But when it comes to the actual platform itself, they may not be on the platform, but they are definitely using it without knowing it. Visitors definitely need temporary access. And this is a big growing use case. We'll talk a little bit more in a minute about this. But the access control platform can provide a full solution for self check-in and visitor badges and access permissions and management, through a check-in type of kiosk. And we still have contractors and vendors, and then even possibly volunteers, right? So same thing as a visitor. We can take a volunteer and apply that same scenario of needing access to specific areas for a specific set of time. Much larger system, right? When we take both of these systems and compare them, we see that they share some of the same users, but are vastly different in their need and expectation. The type of credentials they're going to use is vastly different. Where a store associate gaining access for maybe 1, 2, or 3 times a day out of back door, that can easily be done from a phone. Right? There's no need for a key, a fob, or a card, any type of physical credential. But a nurse, on the other hand, a nurse is probably better off working with something hands-free. Right? They're probably better off with some type of credential, whether it's their Apple, Watch or Droid Watch or Google Watch, or whether it's an RFID wristband credential, something they're able to gain access without the use of their hands, right? And without the use of touching a set of hardware is super important. Right? We're talking about a very clean environment. So both employees, but 2 completely different use cases, right? So how do we start to manage expectations and really create a more user-friendly solution? That's really the question that comes to mind. And how do we do it within modern day systems that are not just a single industry? This is where things start to get real fun. So now we start to take and look at an example we just used, healthcare and retail. Healthcare and retail in most cases operate on the same venue. You may have a restaurant or a coffee shop or a gift shop or a flower shop or something that's operating within a healthcare facility. It may be a healthcare facility within a retail environment. You can think of urgent care, or perfect example will be CVS and their big push of modern day healthcare within a retail location. So 2 completely different use cases, 2 completely different sets of users, same venue, right? So we do not want to manage 3 different solutions. We really need one solution that helps us manage the users. We need to take the web of industries with different user groups and really, create a manageable solution that fits the modern day use case, right? We need to take those mechanical keys and turn them into what I would kind of consider an integrated technical solution, right? So we need to focus on the people and their experiences. Returning to car keys, we moved away from the mechanical key, right, into an integrated technical solution. Users today don't want a key. They don't want a card. They don't even want a fob anymore. We're starting to see more and more of that. They actually want the platforms and solutions to know them, right? To work with their tools of choice, their watch, their phone, their hand, their face. They want the solutions to interact with them. So don't get me wrong, I don't think we're going to be summoning the facility to them anytime soon. but you get the idea, right? So
John, there
yeah,
are days where I would like the facility to come to me, but thanks for the
yeah,
reality check. I did have a question that came over, and I think we addressed it somewhat, but let's dig into a little bit more about limiting the time a person can be in the building. And that brings to mind another piece, especially when it comes to healthcare. So much construction, renovation, additions, new towers being built. So I'm wondering, are we able to limit the time a person can be in a building, excuse me, on an hourly basis or even on an assignment basis?
yeah. That's difficult because you don't control necessarily the person. You can control access to an area.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but you can't even necessarily control exit of an area,
Right.
right? So
Right.
who are they? Where are they? Right? These are those integrated technology solutions. You start to
Yeah.
talk about video-based solutions, utilizing, for us, it's a solution called Cognitech.
Okay.
So it's seeing, watching, and knowing not a person, but an individual it doesn't recognize an individual on our solution. It really recognizes the person, how they walk, how they move.
Yep.
So it's not IDing a person. It's
Right.
kind of just giving a person a number and saying this person still is and on property, right? But
Right.
that's a solution integrated with video. So now you've got an access control platform empowering movement, but an actual video system giving you the data back of where and if an individual is still on campus. So you're seeing a lot more of that.
Right.
Great question. Hard to control currently.
Right.
There's definitely tools out there that allow you to know that a person is there. You can't control the person, but you can control where they can go and how long they can be there with permissions.
Okay. That's helpful. Well, let's keep going on some of these solutions trends. I'd
Sure.
like to see what else is in store for this presentation.
Yeah. So what trends? Obviously, you've got enterprise level wireless access platforms, right? That's really starting to become the norm. This is moving away from your standardized access control platform of a reader tied to a controller, right? Infrastructure all the way back to a panel and panel tied to a server, right? This is us putting a door lock on a door and wirelessly tying it back without infrastructure, right? So big functions there is going to be, yeah, you still gain the comprehensive access control platform that you want. You remove all the infrastructure needed, and you really still get to preserve and keep the building aesthetics and the integrity of the building without coming in and ripping, replacing, and putting in, these massive systems that we used to see with access control. We can do a lot of that now by removing a mechanical key, mechanical lock, putting in a wireless lock, and away we go, right? That's kind of what Salto Pro Access Space is all about. So moving into some other use cases, we're also seeing a lot of wireless cloud-based platforms, right? So this would be really the enjoyment of all the same access control that you have, the functions and features of access control, but then putting it on a web-based cloud server, right? So now we're able to use and track everything from the pocket of our phone, or from the phone in our pocket. Sorry, I can pull out and control and see all the people, block, add users, everything from anywhere in the world. I could be sitting on a beach and control all of my access control, which is great. Works really, really well in some scenarios, retail being one of the best ones, right? So a district manager may be on the move all the time. They're going to need to add and control access and see access, make sure stores are open, all that fun stuff that you have. And then removing mechanical keys out of the equation, which, to be honest, ROI on removing mechanical keys is pretty much instantaneous, right? So employee leaves, didn't give you back your key, you're rekeying the whole store, right? Or the whole district in some scenarios. This scenario, you're not rekeying anything. You're just turning them off and away you go. So for our solution at Salto KS, it's a smart access control platform that offers different opening types. So I can open doors with cards and fobs. I can open doors remotely from anywhere in the world. I can use a digital key built into my phone or my Apple Watch. But essentially, it delivers kind of a very advanced security management platform via the cloud. Smart locker solutions are massive, right? So this would be for us, again, our NetLock solution. And really, we're seeing this be used in a lot of different areas. So obviously, corporate, fitness, leisure, your three main users of this solution. But lockers are really an answer to our evolving workplace. You think about how we worked pre-COVID versus how we work now. A lot of what we're seeing is some type of hybrid use case, smaller offices, maybe co-working facilities. We still need the ability to move and adapt. But without a private area, you lose the ability to store. We still need the ability to store things like laptops and computers and any type of assets that we would use on site. So lockers give us the ability to very quickly maintain that and to give individuals the ability to store stuff either on a daily, weekly, or yearly basis. Very, very robust systems and great looking, as you can see. So some of the big pushes we've seen for this, you can think of data centers where individuals are plugging in their headset every night. Where do they put their headset? Are they working tomorrow? Are they bringing their headset with them, right? It's getting damaged. They have a locker where they're taking their devices and actually plugging them into the locker system to charge them overnight. So when they get in the next morning, they're pulling them out, using them for the day and back in, right? We see people in the fitness industries actually putting in assets like massage gun, thermogun, red light therapy machines, all these different types of machines that you would want to use in a wellness space, but you don't want to leave out in the open, right? So you apply it to a gym membership where they can walk up and use it for 10 minutes and put it back, right? But you have a full audit trail of who took it and when they took it and how they took it. So a lot of different ways smart locker solutions are being played. Pharmaceutical control probably also being a big one as well, right? So between pharmacy and nurse, pharmaceuticals are being put in the locker, two-way locker, and then being removed and pulled out via the nurse. You have a full audit trail and custody of the actual pharmaceutical good itself. So lots of different use cases there with smart locker systems. Self-service check-in. I talk about this all the time with people. This is a really fast-growing one. This is contactless self-service check-in kiosk for visitors or volunteers. All right, this is the ability to provide visitors, contractors, guests, any type of secure access on site. This could be everything from them getting a QR code of signing up before and scanning the QR code and creating their own credential in the system. This could also be walking up and plugging in their information or even paying for something to be able to gain access. So you can think of a ticketing system in this scenario, but really it's a very convenient way of an individual gaining permission, right, through some type of checks and balances at a kiosk. You guys have probably seen this. So it's really an all-in-one visitor management system, right? Reduces wait times, reduces the need for employees, which is big, extremely easy to use. You can have built-in cameras or QR code scanners, that type of scenario to boost security of two-way authentication to a phone. But it's fast, it's easy, it's contactless. So really easy to roll out into a lot of different scenarios. We see this used everywhere from leisure all the way up into hospitals for visitor management. And really, probably the fastest growing one we're currently seeing. It's not new to anybody, but it's becoming much, I would say, much more affordable and more compliant. Would be facial verification, right? So this is what we call access control, is a method of unlocking a place with your face. So these are becoming more integrated into the solutions that we already have. It can be used in various sectors and settings and applications, but it really works by using biometric technology. It's an image of a user's face that's taken, which is converted to a series of numbers, right? So measurements between the eyes, face, nose, shape, all that stuff is created into a specific number. And this information is then used to either grant or deny access to a particular space. So it's not IDing someone, it's verifying them with a number, right? So up front, they're IDing themselves. They're given a number within the system, and then that number is applied. So really, really heavy in seeing this use case build probably over the next couple of years as people, again, they don't want to pull out a card, they don't want to pull out a fob, they don't want to pull out their phone. They may not even have a phone. They want to walk up and they want the door to open for them, right? So we need to start to apply applications like this for that scenario to operate and work. So
I thought that last point you made was really interesting, John, that, the difference between identification versus verification. And I think that's something, just to reiterate there, when you talked about that assignment of that individual, we've been talking so much about the user side of it, but really that verification then works towards satisfying the building requirements on this, at the same time.
yeah.
And with that in mind, we've got a question about the locks and the number of locks. The question is, there are a variety of locks in the world. And the question is, does that mean there are different applications for different locks, i.e. a door versus a locker versus some other access, point of access? How does that all integrate here?
Yeah, that's really where we actually, you kind of segued this perfectly. That's really where the ecosystem plays. Right?
Okay.
That's really what we have really set out and focused to build. So yeah, I could have sat here all day long and talked to you about hardware. If you've got something to lock, we have hardware for it, right? So you guys saw pictures of padlocks and mortise and cylindrical locks and mortise cylinder replacement. And I mean, we can go on and on about all the fun hardware. I'd just bore you guys to death. So yes, there is a lot of hardware out there. And yes, it is hard to manage in some scenarios, but really when you start to look at the basis solutions, the hardware is doing the work behind the scenes and allowing for the physical doors to open. But the software and innovation ahead of time and the user itself are what are empowering those things, right? So we always say people, not doors. All of the locks build and work within one large ecosystem, right? So this is everything from someone checking in at a kiosk and gaining some type of credential, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're just enrolling their face to access the space, right? That's going to empower their movement through doors. But how do they gain a locker? Same scenario, right? We need to apply the same credential to that scenario. So how do they then gain a locker? How do they then make a purchase, right? How do they control something within the venue? You can think of in sports, leisure, fitness, where we start to control things like showers and wellness spaces and hydro massage chairs and all these different scenarios where they're using that same credential to empower everything they do in our venue, all the way to the point of checkout, right? So we got to take that same credential of their choice and build an ecosystem that adapts to them, and the hardware has to adapt to them. So when we start talking about cars, fobs, for an example, fobs cards, or even a digital credential on a phone, you can apply that to all of these, right? And we see that used in today's world. But starting to see tomorrow's modern access is not going to be the application of them applying something, but actually it reacting to them, right? That's the facial recognition, or the biometric type of data you see out there, or the palm credential. There's a large company that does that currently now, right? So we're starting to see some of these different credential types pop up, and really people trying to take those on. So did want to take a moment just to say thank you to everybody for allowing me to present, and thank you for coming and spending time out of your day and listening to us. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you doing that.
Thank you, John. We are going to leave the Q&A portal open for a moment or two. So if you have any other questions, type them in now. John, I want to go back. That last image that you shared had some great use cases there. And I noticed the wristband. I'm wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more to that technology. It
Sure.
seems like it might be something newer for a lot of people on our call today. It is for me. And I just want to kind of hear about where you're seeing that application growing right now.
Yeah, so we see it heavily used currently in sports, leisure, fitness, right?
Okay.
So you can think of resort.
Mm-hmm.
when you're in, so in a small, we'll bring it smaller than a resort. Let's just say inside of a leisure facility. So you're going to a spa. You're going to be going to a thermal spa. When you visit a thermal spa, you're probably you're going to check in. You're going to gain a credential. Because of the water elements, you can't use a digital credential, so you're not going to use a phone. And in most cases, phones aren't allowed in this type of solution or scenario because of the privacy. So a lot of times they're given an RFID credential that's a silicone bracelet. That bracelet empowers their entire stay. They're going to go and open their locker. They're going to put their goods in a locker. They're then going to turn around and go out and enjoy the thermals that they're there for. They're probably going to purchase beer, wine, cheese, whatever it is. They're going to buy their food. They're also possibly going to purchase something else. Could be a massage, could be red light therapy, cryotherapy, any of these different items that you're going to start to see built into these venues. And then they're also going to check out. So the control of that fob from A to Z is the guest's, key to everything you do on site. So we use this heavily. Fitness, you also see this used in more luxury fitness applications. But we're also seeing it start to build into places like you can think of private country clubs where you operate on a member number, right? I'm going to buy my sandwich today. Here, my member number is 101. Right. Now taking that, and instead of having all of that accounting that has to be done by hand, we're simply applying a credential to it, and that's me purchasing, on the point of sale system that sandwich that day.
Okay.
So, yep.
I'll be keeping my eye out for more of that. I have a feeling I'm going to see that sooner than later.
Yep.
A couple questions have come in, and we're going to jump facility types over to schools. Wayne is asking about the lockers and whether or not you're seeing that application in schools as well as where you showed them here.
Yes, we are. Yeah, schools is a heavy use case for lockers.
Okay.
So keep in mind, there's really two different major locker systems. You've got an online, fully wired locker system, which is heavily used in new locker systems. So when you're going to come in and put new lockers in, you're going to use a wired solution in most cases because you want to gain the real-time data and use of the lockers themselves. In a retro application where you have existing lockers, but you want to make them smarter, get away from mechanical lock, you're going to use a battery-based solution. Okay. Heavily used in education, not just for student management or student goods management, but also used for assets. So think classroom assets. The classroom assets that you're currently seeing with laptops and tablets and headphones and all these different, you guys have seen them. They're these super tall, 8-foot by 8-foot, really ugly laptops, and wires are hanging everywhere, right? So you can now take those and give each individual a cubby. You can now charge those through the locking system, and it's very clean and against a wall. So you're got a more aesthetically pleasing classroom, and not this big ball of wires that you're pushing around the classroom constantly trying to work around. Right. So yeah, heavily seen and used in education.
I'll be looking for those as well. That's really interesting. I know we were talking about school-age kids before our call officially started. I know we're running a little low on time, but there's another question here about that connectionless security. Brian is asking about using this technology in an offsite space that doesn't have backup power, power outages, things like that. What kind of considerations should we be giving when we're thinking about that connectionless security?
Yeah, that's really where the Salto access control platform starts to shine, right? So one, we have wireless battery-driven locks. So you can take an example would be a padlock, and you can put it out in the middle of we always talk about the cornfield, out in the middle of a cornfield, right? And because we kind of flip access control upside down, all the data, and I don't want to go too deep into this, all the data of the system is on the card, right? So we are essentially bringing the access control platform to the lock, as opposed to the lock verifying me, going back into a system that has to be tied into a server, right? That whole scenario, we're flipping that around. So all of the data is essentially placed on the credential. We call it SVN, data on card. You can look it up. I'm not going to be too nerdy here and go fully into it, but because of the way that we control access to our smart credential, right? It's a live credential. It just doesn't just have a number on it. It has all the data for all the users, both you and everybody else, and you're bringing that to the lock. You have a lot more flexibility in what you can do. The removal of the infrastructure is the important piece there, right? A lock being able to operate on its own without a secondary power or a first or secondary power solution, you know, you can probably get anywhere from, we'll say anywhere from 100,000 to 160,000 cycles on a lock, depending on what type of lock it is.
Okay.
But you're super empowered to do things with offline locks that you normally couldn't do. Now, we wouldn't recommend that in a very high security area. Because in a high security area, you really want to be, you want the lock to either be wired or wireless. In this scenario, we're talking about wire-free or offline locks. But the flexibility you gain with Salto is there.
Yeah, those are important distinctions. And I appreciate you detailing those.
Yep.
Actually, a question, John, that I can answer. So I'm going to give you a second to think about some parting thoughts, and I'm going to answer Zohaib's question about, can we have the slides? Yes, everybody on the call today will receive an email later today or early tomorrow with a link to an archive of this presentation, as well as a PDF version of John's slides. And that also includes John's contact information that you're seeing here on the screen. So please know, if you have a question that occurs to you after the conclusion of today's presentation, you can always reach out and get those answers directly from John and the people at Salto as well. So with that, I think we have come to the end of our questions from our audience, John, but I'd love to just connect with you one more time. Key takeaways or next steps, where should our audience go next to maybe examine their own internal needs, or where they can kind of start their own process as they consider improving access control in their facilities?
Yeah, if there's one take, and I think we beat this one down, it's to look at your users.
Yeah.
Right. Look at how you gain access. Does it meet your needs? Does it meet your expectations? Talk to your coworkers. What does it look like? There's a lot of solutions out there that can really improve not only the management and maintenance of the solution that we get to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but also that of the user themselves, right? So really just want to, again, take a time to say thank you very much. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy days to come on and listen to me rant. If you have any other questions or want to talk about, I'm a total nerd. I talk about this stuff all day long, so feel free to reach out to me. But really appreciate you all.
Great. Thank you, John. We appreciate this really great detailed presentation. I'd like to also thank Salto for their sponsorship of this important discussion. Access control is only going to become more important as we continue to move into a more modern world. And it's great to know there are tools and resources out there. And John, you yourself is a resource as well. So thank you again. And for our attendees today, thank you for being a part of our presentation. And with that, I will wish everyone a good day and conclude today's webcast.